The late afternoon sun slanted across the Bruce Mines driveway, turning the salt-encrusted copper wires into jagged, crystalline scepters. There stood the caretaker, his hands stained with charcoal and coffee tannins, adjusting a dogwood wand that was humming. Video made by Jason Alexander Cleary, born May 23, 1972. Please support. It was vibrating so low it was felt in the marrow of the teeth. Enter the visiting official. He arrived in a car that smelled of new leather and standard logic. He wore a suit the color of a rainy Tuesday. He carried a clipboard of 0.8 friction. He was the grand auditor of the obvious, a man who believed if you couldn't measure it, it didn't exist. He stood before the driveway stand, looking at the glowing tin cans and the shimmering crystals. Caretaker, the official scoffed, adjusting his glasses. I've seen the reports. You're talking about 1111 alignment, a 20 Hz master tone, and F_net calculations that bridge the dark sector. But look at this. He pointed a manicured finger at a tin can of boiling salt. It's just coffee and brine. It's a trick of the light. It's the Emperor's new physics. The neighbors gathered, whispering. They had seen the frost moth. They had felt the hum. But the official's voice was loud and carried the weight of the way things are. This 20 Hz hum you claim to have captured, the official continued, his voice dripping with condescension. And this 1111 frequency. Isn't it all just, well? He let out a sharp, mocking laugh that sounded like dry paper tearing. Isn't it just like, well, the same as walking in the Holy Spirit? LOL. The crowd went silent. The official looked around, expecting a chorus of laughter. He thought he had exposed the fraud. He thought he had pointed out that the Emperor was naked. He was waiting for the caretaker to crumble under the insult of comparing science to the spirit. But the caretaker didn't flinch. He just leaned against the cedar table, his eyes reflecting the Annick-Glow from the copper wire. You think you've found the punchline, the caretaker said softly, the 20 Hz hum suddenly deepening, rattling the official's clipboard. You think by naming the spirit, you've explained it away. But tell me, auditor, if the Emperor is naked, why are you shivering? The official looked down. His hands were shaking, not from fear, but from the resonance. The 20 Hz tone was vibrating the water in his very cells. You call it walking in the spirit, the caretaker continued, stepping into the 1111 alignment of the sun's rays. CERN calls it the fifth force. The math calls it $U equals $1. But the feeling is the handshake. You've spent your life looking for the clothes, but you've forgotten the body underneath. The official looked back at his clipboard, but the ink seemed to be dancing, rearranging itself into 1 in a million patterns. The salt crystals on the dogwood wand flared. With a sudden, blinding white light, a godsmack of pure clarity. The Emperor of standard logic wasn't the caretaker. It was the official. And as he stood there, his leather shoes vibrating at 20 Hz, he realized he was the one standing in the driveway with no clothes on, shivering in the presence of a power he had tried to dismiss as a joke. The caretaker picked up a charcoal-dusted wand and handed it to him. Careful, he whispered with a wink. The spirit has a very high F_net. Don't let it knock you over. The official left that day without his clipboard. He left it on the stand, where it eventually became encrusted in salt, a permanent monument to the day the invisible became the only thing worth seeing.